Hello and welcome everybody to ESL Revolution. I am your content creator and professor, Dr. B. Welcome back to Wednesday. That's right, the upload day, Wednesday, Friday. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, and stay tuned for all of your future EFL needs. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, or ESL as well, depending on where you're from. Tell me where you're from. Put a comment below. Where are you from? Where are you watching this from? Are you just here in Korea? Or are you in another part of the world? Would be great to see how far and wide the video has gotten. Very interesting. Stay tuned for that in the comments below, I'm sure. You will be rushing to the internet to put your comments in. Today I want to continue with the ESL tips and hints section that I've been working on and working through some of the foundational elements of the tips and hints. And that is specifically dealing with culture in the Korean culture in the educational context of language, obviously English in particular. And I've got my stuff up here on the screen so I can take a look at that because, of course, I'm reviewing this article and taking little bits and pieces out of it to provide that information for you. So in the past couple of videos, last week I dealt with some of my criticisms of the article in the way that the author had used the phrase silver, I can't even remember now, silver, gold, and platinum. I can't remember exactly what that was, but I'll link it up here and you can watch it. And this day, today, it's only Wednesday and I'm always going crazy. So I want to touch on something that the author reflects on. And I've talked about this in another video, but it does bear mentioning again, that I think is something that will help us deal better with the English environment in Korea. Let me read this paragraph. He says, according to the English methodology books imported from abroad, it is recommended that students should transfer what they have learned in class to outside the classroom so the knowledge and skills the students acquire in their classrooms can be reinforced and retained. The Korean Ministry of Education has been working on how to create the environment in which students talk with each other in English in class and outside the class. But it must be noted that these methodologies were mostly developed in the ESL context, and that situation is quite different from that of Korea, which is an EFL context, or English as a foreign language. Now, I've got to say that I absolutely agree with this statement 100%. This is one of the fundamental problems that we as English teachers are having, and the students themselves are having as well. And that is that the material that is being used is primarily for a ESL environment. For example, in textbooks that I've seen over the years, one chapter is, in almost every chapter that I've done, has to do with giving directions. Well, the problem is that that sort of topic is not conducive to an EFL environment, which is what we have here in Korea. Now, if there's a Korean who happens to be overseas and is lost and needs help, then yes, that conversation is valuable. However, how many Koreans are going to go up to other Koreans and ask, "Can you help me? I'm lost," in English? Probably zero, or very close to zero. So that leads me to think, then maybe what we ought to do is change the way the textbooks function in the classroom. We could still use an ESL textbook, but we ought not to do everything that the textbook is asking us to do. Because out there, and I'm pointing out my window, out there, some of this material simply is not useful. Now, there's another way that we could do this, and that is stop buying ESL books and start investing in EFL literature for the students and for the teachers. This might be a major benefit to how we as teachers engage our students and how the students engage the language within the classroom. So I've got to say that the author, I think, is spot on about this criticism. And it is a fair criticism. And it's something that I'm slowly really starting to get my head around, that the books that I'm using do not provide the necessary skills to the students themselves. There's a few other things that I want to make note of as well. One of the things that, to kind of go along with this, the idea of EFL versus ESL, link up there, is that what are we really trying to do with English language? What is the purpose of the language practice in Korea in the first place? Now, as I've mentioned before, I've been in Korea now for 15 years. And my inclination is to consider that English for English's sake is not the reason why we are studying it. The fact of the matter is that English is one of several topics that are included on the KSAT, the Korean Scholastic Aptitude Test. And therefore, it is important for the students to learn the language in order to be prepared for that test. However, the issue is that they are learning the technical, grammatical aspects of the language. I'm sorry, my kids are outside talking and screaming and having fun, so I apologize for that. But in reality, what they are doing is preparing for the writing of that test, not for actually engaging in the language. So, if that's the case, then why have spoken language in the first place? That's a question that I've been asked by many times by Korean English teachers and students alike. So, let me give you my answer. Now, this has been formulated in my mind over the last few months. Actually, probably concretely, I would say, in the last 6 months, but has certainly been in my mind for the last 2 to 3 years. And that is, we are moving into an entirely new way of doing things in the 21st century. We are moving from a third industrial revolution to a fourth industrial revolution. And there are people out there who are trying to explain very diligently what that means. Jeremy Rifkin is one of those individuals. Alvin Toffler, other futurists who are writing on this magnificent change that we are seeing in culture. However, one area that English can be particularly helpful with is the way that foreigners typically engage and have developed certain skills that are not in the Korean context. Now, I know that there are rules to the exception, and I am aware of those. So this is a generalized statement, and I do understand that and recognize that. However, there are several things that a fourth industrial revolution economy is going to need. First, it is going to need highly creative, highly motivated, and highly adaptable individuals. Now, unfortunately, the Korean system does not allow for that to occur particularly well. We've talked about how Korea is structured very much from the top down, whether in the classroom or in the outside world. That, unfortunately, is not going to help the average Korean worker. Another thing that we as foreign teachers can bring into the classroom is to teach and develop the skills of a highly creative mind. That is something that we have been taught since the very beginning of our schooling. And those are the skills that we can bring forward into the classroom at whatever level we happen to be teaching. We can also be bringing in the idea of peer review or self-evaluation in a way of pushing forward what we need to do better than what we've done it in the past. Those are three areas that I think foreigners can really help Koreans adjust to this new type of economy. In fact, I spent about 3 months actually, in one of my classes at university going through this problem over the course of 12 weeks. Students would come into a drop-in program that I was running to mentor them on the new way of thinking about the economy and their role in society. Most of them were shocked at what I was telling them because none of their other teachers were engaged in that sort of work and that sort of dialogue and getting them thinking in a completely different way. So put that over here because that is an important aspect of what foreigners can do to help their Korean compatriots. Because that's what we're here for. We need to be thinking, as far as my role, as far as our role, we need to be thinking more than just teaching English. Yes, that is one aspect of our job, but it ought not to be the only thing that we do. And if we can help the students understand what that new shift will be in the next 5, 10, 15 years, then we will give them an advantage. And that is what we are trying to do. The second thing that has immense value with EFL, not ESL, but EFL, is that we can train these young people to engage a much broader world than what they are engaged with right now. One of the things that is statistically scary in Korean culture is the lack of jobs that are being created, especially for that under 30 generation. The university students and the future high school, middle school, elementary school students, as all of those students come up into the world of work, we are going to see dramatic work shortages. So, if you can't find a job here, where do you go? Well, there's lots of countries overseas where you could, in fact, find a decent job, even for a short term, even for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. But you have to be thinking as a global citizen, not just a Korean citizen. Because then, once you start thinking globally, you start thinking, what degrees should I be investing my time and energy in? Because if I do go overseas, is my degree going to be worth anything? Is my degree going to have value in another part of the world? Because if it is, then you have broadened your horizons in a big way. That's exactly what I did. In the mid-1990s, I started to realize the way that the North American job market was beginning to shift. I needed to think outside the box. And you know what? Most of my career I have spent outside of my home country. Why? Because this is where I'm needed. And my skills can be brought to bear in a classroom to help you, the student, or the Korean English teacher, or whoever I am engaged with, to help your job and help you succeed in that job in a better way. So, while I agree with this professor, or with this researcher and this author, that the EFL and the ESL books do not meet eye to eye and do not meet the needs of the citizenry here in Korea, what we can do as teachers is to reformulate how we engage those students at whatever level we're dealing with, elementary all the way up to university and beyond, and to start looking at things in a much more wider global perspective than what we have in the past. Well, that's it for me, everybody. I hope that helps. And I hope that you consider this, because this is going to have major impacts on your life over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So please be aware of it and begin to make changes now. When you are at university, for example, as my students are right now, begin to think seriously, is my degree going to matter in 10 years? And where should I need to be thinking about going in order to maintain that job advantage in the future? That's all for me now. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you are well, and please stay safe, stay healthy. The numbers in Korea are slowly going down with coronavirus, so don't risk exposure for yourself. Stay quarantined, stay inside, and remember, be the revolution. Thanks very much, everybody. I'm Dr. B. Peace.